Alright, so on the Chevy here, we're going to get the back cover off. So, this is where we determined that oil leak was in the last video. Is this rear main seal down here just pouring out all around the bottom of it. So we're going to get this whole back cover off and get a better look at what's going on back here. And this is our gasket here. Oh, see how brittle that was? Look at that. Yep, that rubber part of it. So you got the metal and then this rubber. Look at that. Oh, it just breaks apart. Oh, well. Yeah, that'll definitely do it right there. It's all just breaking away. That should be a nice flexible rubber. It shouldn't be able to break like that. Well, there's our problem. For those of you who don't know, that is actually the back of your camshaft right here. So that's the camshaft. This is your crankshaft. Okay. So we're probably gonna have to do pull that oil pan back down and loosen it up, because at this lip up here for the oil pan seal, if we push the cover in, it's most likely going to catch that rubber lip. It's going to end up tearing it. It's going to ruin our oil pan seal. So we're going to have to loosen the oil pan up and drop it down. I'm not going to bore you with loosening all those bolts up. We've already shown that on camera. We've already shown you before. So we're just going to loosen up the bolts. We're going to bring the oil pan down just a little bit, so that way when we put our new seal in, everything lines up like it should. We don't cause any issues with the gasket, and we will get that all ready to go and put back together. And once we do, I'll bring you back. So hang tight. Got the rear cover ready to go, kind of cleaned up. So there is an installer tool for this. It goes over the back of the crank, like so. So when you put the new seal in, it doesn't cut it, right? You want it, this is a tapered tool, so it kind of spreads the seal over the crank, so we don't accidentally cut anything, because you don't want to do that. That would make for another leak again. We don't need another leak. So let's get up here, get our new cover. We put Seal Glide. It's a kind of like a seal lubricant over the seal and the tool, so that way everything will slide into place nice and beautifully. And we walk that guy on there and just kind of gently walk it. All right, just like that. Let's snug these bolts up here so we can get everything lined up. There we go. We can slide this right on off of there. Now that seal and cover is installed. Now we're going to take a little bit of silicone, which we technically should have put on beforehand, but someone kept getting distracted by customers showing up and other jobs it's got to leave. So we're going to take this, we're going to bring this down in here so we can make sure we get a good amount of silicone down in here in this corner. There we go. And just kind of get all that down in there. In that corner. Again, this should have been done beforehand, but we had forgotten, and we don't want to risk damaging that rear main seal by pulling it back off. So we're going to get all this in there. And so when we tighten up the pan and it closes this gap, it's going to smush it all right where it needs to go. So, same on this corner. This corner is actually a little bit easier because you can actually get to the side of it. So we can just kind of inject it in there. There we go. And that's the only two places you really need to put any silicone. So now we can snug those guys up, which are now a different size. They went up a couple sizes because they're the new bolts that come with the kit. And we'll just slowly walk these in. And we'll get all these other ones started, and then we'll do the oil pan ones last. Well, you want to make sure that oil pan is down, kinda. We want the rear cover to kind of center itself on that rear main seal. So that's kind of what's centering this whole cover. They don't have any dowel pins, which I really wish they did, make things a little bit easier. And that's what kind of helps center this cover, is that seal. Because if you were to have the pan tightened up when you put this in here, you can risk damaging the oil pan seal. But at the same time, you're putting a uneven pressure on that rear seal by pushing it up. It's not going to be centered with the crank, and you can cause a leak that way. All right, go back to this one. I didn't want to start. There it goes. And you'll see the silicone smush out as we tighten it. There we go. Okay, that's pretty much the rear cover installed. Wipe some of that excess off of there just so it looks pretty. There we go. Rear main seal installed. Looks pretty good. There we go. That seal is nice all the way around. Good all the way to the top. There you go. Now we just gotta get transmission put back in it and get it fired up. All right, now it's time to get the flex plate installed, and we're gonna need a helper for that. But the bolts, you want to make sure that you put blue Loctite on them. Some people will use red, some will use blue. I like to use blue. Now your flex plate will only go on one way because it is balanced. And you notice there's a hole, these 3 holes that are near each other. And on the flex plate we have 3 holes. So you can only bolt this in one way, the bolt pattern on it. It's not going to let you basically put it on the wrong way. If you put it on the wrong way, the bolts won't line up. You could put it on backwards, but that's a story for a different time. So we'll get these bolts started in here, and then we'll have our helper hold the crank so that way we can tighten these to spec. You absolutely want to make sure these are tightened to spec. So the torque spec procedure on this is 15 for the first pass, 37 for the second pass, and 74 for your final pass. So you'll go over these 3 times to make sure that they're evenly tight and that the flex plate is seated correctly. So for the first one, we're going to snug them up. We're just going to use an electric ratchet. And you want to go in a crisscross pattern. Now that most likely went over our 15 foot-pounds. Let's face it, 15 foot-pounds isn't much. So we're actually going to skip the first one and just go to 37 foot-pounds with a torque wrench. So let me get the torque wrench out. Set it for 37. There we go. And again, star pattern. So there's 37, 37. There we go. And then now we're going to do 74. There we go, 74 foot-pounds. And if it makes you feel uncomfortable, you can go over them one more time just to make sure. There you go. That's installing the flex plate. All right, now that we have the flex plate and the rear main seal and rear cover all installed, next step is going to be putting transmission back in. So we're gonna get it. It's gonna come up right in here. Hopefully y'all are gonna get a great view. This thing just raising up into place. And then maybe we'll do some other view angles as we go. That way to give y'all a little more perspective of what's going on. So let's roll this big old thing over here. these lines right here, there's this little thing called an E-clip that sits right here. You might actually be able to see it in the groove. There's an E-clip. Okay, you can see the little nipple of it right there. Those are E-clips. So there's a story behind those E-clips that I'll probably share to you maybe at the end of the video. We'll see how long this goes. But those E-clips, you have to pry them, you have to pull them kind of out to get them out, and they'll sometimes like bend open a little. And that's why they make these, which go over it to prevent them from opening up. So that little E-clip is about 2 cents. If that line is not fully seated in there and that E-clip is not locked, and this guy is not on there just right, then you're going to have a bad day. And I had a bad day once because of those E-clips. So my lesson that I learned was that they get replaced every time they get taken off. I have an assortment, thousands of them in a box. They get replaced every time. These upper bolts are going to be a lot more difficult to get to. Got to use a really long extension with a swivel. Alright, so when we took the exhaust out, see that bolt that broke? And this stud over here is fine. So these are just press-in studs. You can usually knock these out. Sometimes you can knock them out with a hammer. Sometimes you can just, a punch. Around here, we have air. We have an air hammer. These tend to work pretty well. So let's give it a little shot and see if we can get this guy out of there. Watch your fingers. I know someone wants to, air hammered his finger by accident and it slipped, and it hurt a lot. Loud noises. Okay. We gotta figure a way so this don't move everywhere. And let's get you down here where you can see me a little bit better. Yeah. Shot right out of there. So, and then now once it's out, since there's a hole, you just use a regular nut and bolt. Pretty easy. Alright, back to our regularly scheduled program. Now we let it run for a little bit and we'll check it for leaks again. So, still got the vacuum leak up top I got to address. Plastic intake, plastic hoses, plastic nipples. They get old, brittle, and they break. So we're waiting on we're getting some fittings to replace them. But we've been running for just a couple minutes, not long. And so far so good. So we're gonna let it run a little bit longer. I'm not gonna bore you with that. It's just gonna sit here and idle. And then we're gonna check it again and see if we fixed the leak. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. All right, she's been running now 15 or so minutes. Much longer than we let it last time. We're good and dry. Look at that. So, we're gonna let it run just a little bit longer, but I believe that wraps it up for this. Oil pan all the way around. It's nice and dry. There we go. So, that's how you do the rear main seal on your 2007 Chevrolet. And don't make the mistake that I did. If it's leaking that severely, it may not be your pan. Just might be your rear main seal. Y'all have a good day. Give me a thumbs up if you liked it. Subscribe to the channel if you're enjoying the content. And thank you for watching. Have a good day. All right, it's the end of the day. I just remembered that I almost forgot to tell you about the story with the E-clips. So, the story about those E-clips and why I always replace them is a little while back. I used to never replace them. I'd take them out, I'd keep them, and then I'd put them back in and assemble it, and everything would be fine. Did that for years, never an issue. And I had this one particular truck I was working on, the 2001, 2, somewhere around there, Chevy Duramax, did head gaskets and everything on it. And I, to do head gaskets, you have the cab of the truck up, completely disassembled. And it went all back together, and everything was fine. Customer picked it up, and test drive was great, and customer took off with it. And a couple of days later, shop get a call that I was working at the time. I was working for another shop, and we got a call, and truck wouldn't move anymore. Couldn't figure it. Didn't know what happened. He couldn't figure it out. He had it towed into the shop, and we get it into the shop, and lo and behold, it's got no transmission fluid in it. The E-clip for the transmission cooler line, it wasn't seated all the way. Maybe the clip was wore out. Who knows what happened with it. But it came out. And it dumped all of the transmission fluid out. And he was trying to drive that way. He even, after it started slipping, the transmission was slipping, he tried to drive it home. And it just burned up and trashed that transmission. So, unfortunately, the shop owed him a transmission, and I got to put a transmission in it. And my lesson to that was, from now on, I replace those E-clips every time. I don't take any chances. Every line with an E-clip gets a brand new one in it. So, everyone makes mistakes. That was my mistake.